Hi everyone, my name is Rosanna and I'm thinking of starting a series, kind of like a Quaransumption series where I kind of review TV shows, movies, books, podcasts, what I'm consuming during quarantine, because that's literally all I'm doing. So, it's just for fun, for me to talk about the things that I'm reading, watching, listening. So this is for January 2021, so let's get right into it. For TV shows, one of the shows that I have been binging, that I started actually in December and finished in January, was Girlfriends. Literally all, I think there's 8 seasons of Girlfriends, and I used to watch this show when I was younger, like high school, I think, and I really liked it then. So rewatching it gave me a lot of memories, and felt very like I'm reliving some memories I had while watching it when I was younger. It's funny, it's a very good watch, and I find that it does touch on a lot of social aspects, and I learned a lot from watching this series. There were some jokes about sexism and things like that I think probably maybe would not have been okay today and in 2021. And I find that some of the character development, I would root for them, but I guess for the plot or for the sake of, making the show drama fills, I found that the character development kind of stunted Arrested Development for some of the characters. So, I mean, it's a good watch, very funny. There were a lot of funny moments. My husband really enjoyed it too. He watched it with me most of the time. I would definitely recommend watching this. The second show that I watched was the behind the scenes for the Mandalorian series on Disney Plus. I really liked watching it. I did watch the Mandalorian, but the behind the scenes I found was even more fascinating because it's not at all how I thought it was filmed. It was definitely way more complicated than I thought and way more interesting. If you're a fan of The Mandalorian and you watch the series, I recommend watching the behind the scenes, the making of it. I learned a lot. It made me appreciate the show much more. I also watched The Mandalorian, really liked it. Just love the whole series. Baby Yoda, who doesn't love Baby Yoda? Another show I watched was Big Mouth on Netflix, and I just love that whole entire cast. So funny and so ridiculous. It's a great show to watch. As you're we watch it when we're eating dinner, although some things are kind of gross, but so hilarious. The cast is A+. Love the cast. Everyone is so funny. I've been watching it for the past few seasons. I definitely recommend it. I may not recommend watching it while you eat, because it's kind of a little gross, some of the topics that they talk about, but really funny. And now the next show I watched has gotten some interesting reviews. Bling Empire. I liked it. I thought it was interesting and funny. Even though I'm not like ridiculously rich, I related to just the Asian customs that they were talking about, Asian rules. I just related to it. I understood. I felt seen. So I know that some people don't like the show because they don't like how Asians are portrayed, but you know what? Like, I'm actually happy that they have an entire Asian cast in a like reality TV show that isn't set in Hollywood. Like, when has that ever happened? Like, literally never. Like, obviously there are like some reality TV shows that have an Asian cast, but they're usually set in Asia, like Japan. I think there's like Terrace House and Chinese shows set in China, but to have it set in the States, in Hollywood, in LA or whatever, I think is amazing. And I don't feel like it's fair that Asians have to be always portrayed in one certain model minority for it to be able to make it on TV. Like, just like every other race, Asians can also have selfish people, types of personalities. So I'm all for it. Hashtag representation. The next, there's 3 shows that I not just started. 3 shows that I'm currently still watching are Kim's Convenience. If you're in Toronto and you are from an immigrant family, like, you should be watching this. Like, it should be mandatory. It's funny, and you relate to it on so many levels. If your parents are immigrants, it definitely tells a story of that family that you don't really see on TV. And you know, I have to support Asian representation at all times. So I recommend watching that show. Another show that I think not a lot of people have heard of is called Superstore. I love it. I've worked retail before. Obviously it's about retail, and America Ferrera was in it, not in this season, and so like a really amazing cast that is hilarious. The humor is just right up my alley. I love it. If you've ever worked retail, you can appreciate the show and understand its humor. I love it. I recommend watching it. The next show that we're still watching right now is WandaVision. It just came out. I've just watched episode 4, I think, last night. Just like all Marvel movies and whatever they churn out, I enjoy. It's a good watch. I recommend, after watching an episode, watching like YouTube Easter egg videos, because I feel like it makes you appreciate the show a bit more and the episode, and gives you a deeper understanding of it, because there are so many Easter eggs. Like, so many. I just couldn't believe it. That's the only advice I have if you're watching WandaVision, to watch the Easter egg YouTube videos. All right, moving on to movies. So we watched Wonder Woman 1984. I think I made a mistake of having high hopes for it. Although it's like a feel-good movie, you know, It's here for a good time. I enjoyed it mostly, but there were some parts that I found a little, they didn't flesh out the details. I don't want to do any spoilers, so I'm not gonna go into it, but I liked the first movie more. I found that one had more heart. The second one, I felt rushed throughout the movie, and it didn't give me enough time to like feel for the characters. So yeah, like I liked it, but not as much as the first one. I also watched Wicker 2 on Netflix. I know that was out a long time ago, but that was, I think, the last Wicker series, because I had watched Wicker 3 first in theaters, and then I watched Wicker 1, the first one, at a friend's place, and then because Wicker 2 came out on Netflix recently, I watched that. What can I say? Just a good action-packed movie. Can't go wrong with Keanu Reeves. Yeah, I liked it. I also watched The Spy Who Dumped Me on Netflix. That movie was actually pretty good. I liked it. I love Mila Kunis and I love Kate McKinnon. Like, just love them both. They're hilarious. It's a good movie to watch. It's funny. Yeah. I enjoy it. I recommend. The last movie that I have to confess, I didn't finish watching it. I tried, and I went in feeling, giving it a good opinion. It's Rogue. Honestly, I watched it because of Megan Fox. I'm a fan of hers, and as much as I like her acting, I just couldn't get with the story and the plot. It just didn't make any sense. It's like those movies where just random shit happens and it just doesn't make sense. Like, I would equate it to like Piranha, sort of. Although I never watched Piranha, but it gives me that feeling of like, what just happened? That, like, you know what I mean? So I couldn't even finish watching it. I think I watched like half an hour and then I stopped it. Around that point, spoiler alert, where like an alligator just jumped out of shallow water. That doesn't make sense. How do you not see an alligator in shallow water? It's like literally like shallow water. And it just jumps up and eats someone. Like, what? Anyways, I don't recommend watching it unless you're just watching it to make fun of it. Then I get it. But I couldn't. For music, I have just been listening nonstop to the Evermore album by Taylor Swift. I'm a big Swiftie. I love all of her music. Although I have to say I start loving her music more with the more recent albums. Starting with Reputation. Everything before that, I liked her, but I wasn't as like into it. Didn't listen to every song on each album, which I had only started doing with Reputation. So Evermore, great album. I have to say the first time I listened to it, I liked Folklore more, but after listening to it nonstop for the whole month, I really enjoy it. I love all the songs. I recommend if you like more folksy music. It's just a literary genius. Could not say any more good things about it. And for the podcast that I've been binging on, in January is actually staying in with Emily and Kumail. Kumail Nanjiani, actor, comedian. You've probably seen something of his. Emily V. Gordon is his wife. They have like a movie based on their life called The Big Sick. I still haven't watched it yet, but I should. I binged that podcast because I like Kumail. I had never really listened to anything from Emily, but I like Kumail. I think he's hilarious. And it's about the first, I would say, 6 to 8 months of the pandemic, from like March till, I want to say July or August, no, March until the end of, I don't remember. And they talk about how it has been affecting them. Emily obviously has is immunocompromised, so they talk about how that's been affecting both their lives, and what they've been doing during quarantine, what they recommend, and the show gets pretty personal. Well, personal and deep in terms of like how they feel and how they've been tackling it, and I just enjoyed listening to them talk. And if it feels like they're just talking right in my living room, it's very informal. Learned a lot from that podcast. So if you are a big fan of Kumail, I do recommend that series. I think it's done now. It's a very short-lived series, which is what they had planned for it to be. So yeah, definitely binge that. And the last thing I consumed in January, I read the book Becoming Michelle Obama. I know I'm a couple years late, but I had just recently gotten a Kobo, and that was one of the first books I read. And I liked the book, but I liked more the aspect of her, how she became where she is now, and how she juggles being a mom, a wife, and her own ambitions, which I'm always fascinated about, because I want to be a mom someday, but I know some people feel hesitant to have kids because they think it will slow their career down, and hinder their career, which I completely understand where they're coming from. I would like to think that it won't slow your career down if you don't let it. That's my personal belief. But I know that it's hard. I know it's hard to juggle 3 roles, and usually men don't care. They don't have mommy guilt or anything like that. I mean, my husband, when we used to go into work, he didn't feel guilty at all leaving our dog home for 8 to 12 hours a day alone, while I felt so much guilt. And I don't know why. Why do women? Anyways, I liked it for that aspect. The other aspect about becoming First Lady and dealing with politics, and how Obama rose to his role. It's interesting, but I wasn't, it didn't fascinate me as much as her story. So I learned quite a bit about how she juggled supporting, you know, her husband's career, supporting her kids, and trying to be active in her work role. So it makes me feel like it is possible, but there are definitely sacrifices that you'll have to make if you are a mom, and it's not easy. You just have to be okay with the choices that you make. So yeah. Anyway, so those are my Quaransumptions for January. Let me know. What did you agree with my assessment? Do you not agree? Yeah, let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!